and thank you for joining me on the show today. This is the Now Talks, a collection of inspiring personal stories and leadership lessons from some of the world's most iconic leaders. It is the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. My name is Dr. Tina Allton, and I'm your host for today and the coming weeks. Yes, so welcome again to Now Talks. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Tina Allton. I'm based in London. I'm the CEO and president here at Nations of Women. And I have with me an incredible woman, Stacey Campbell, all the way from Canada and United States and all the continents you can think of. She has been a midwife to me in my purpose, in my vision. She was one of the first voices that spoke into my life and literally launched me into what I knew I'd been called to do, but I was kind of like faffing around, not doing. So Stacey is my midwife. She's also my electrician in terms of making sure all my electrical circuits in me that makes me the woman I'm becoming is always switched on. So thank you so much, Stacey, for saying yes to joining us today. So by way of introduction, just take a few moments and just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came into leadership.
Well, I just love Tina Allton. You are like an inspiration to me. When I think of all the things that you are doing, I'm just like, wow. To have a little tiny part to speak into was a great delight and joy and honor for me. But I'm a mother and I'm a wife, and I have been married for 41 and a half years, if you can believe it. Yes. And my husband and I, we have 5 grown children, married, a couple grandchildren. And that's the biggest part of who I am. But my husband and I have always work together. I have an incredible husband, and he has always really believed in me and called me. And so I met him when I was just a teenager. And so we've known each other 45 years, and it's been amazing. But I went to university for 5 years. I actually have a double major in French and German. I wanted to be an interpreter for the UN. That was my original goal. But then I got married and had children. And after I went to university, I went to a Baptist seminary and got theological training as well, because my husband is a pastor and he has always had a heart for the nations. In fact, he was a missionary in Nigeria. While we were dating, he went off to Nigeria, and that is where he got his heart, not only for Africa, but he got a huge heart for the poor of the earth there. And so we have spent our life actually doing a lot of work amongst the poor. I've been on many boards of organizations that help the poor of the earth. Also, my husband as well. But we started an organization called Be a Hero International. And the goal of that organization was to help empower women and children at risk. And my husband wrote a book with a Salvation Army captain called Be a Hero, The Battle for Mercy and Social Justice, because it's a big passion of his to see the poor empowered, not just fed and clothed, but actually empowered. And so in that book, the statistics showed that the greatest demographic on the planet is women and children at risk. And these women are amazing, because I think I've had this conversation with you, Tina, that, women in many countries, Latino countries, actually all over the world, Asian countries, African countries, they're the ones that care for their children and oftentimes are the breadwinners because they care for their children. And so they're more hands-on with their children, but they also have to do a lot of the employment and the extra income that it takes to raise a family and give a family a future. And so this is a really big passion of ours. So we started this organization, and the goal was to just use our audiences to show the need, because a lot of times organizations on the ground that are working with poor women and children at risk, or rescuing child soldiers, or rescuing women from sex trafficking, they're so hardcore doing the work day after day after day after day, but they don't have the time or the audience to raise the resources to do the work. And so we did a lot of speaking at conferences, etc. And so we always took an offering for the poor of the earth, and we raised millions of dollars. We did conferences specifically with that end goal in mind, and had speakers that were working on the ground and doing that. And so that has been a big, big passion of ours. And we've been doing that for many, many, many years. And also I run an organization called Shiloh Global, which is a spiritual empowerment for anybody. Actually, we want to just encourage and comfort and speak into the lives of people spiritually. And I have a lot of leaders that I've raised up and trained up to speak to people, leaders everywhere. Because the thing that I've discovered, when I've prayed for a president of a country, for example, or prayed for CEOs, or spoken into families, the thing that I've discovered is that a lot of times people at the top, they look like they have everything. Oh, they got all this power, they've got all this influence, they have all these things. But a lot of times they have incredible burdens of responsibility. I one time talked to a president of a very large country, and he said to me with this burden, he said, if I make this decision, it affects all these people. But if I make the opposite decision, it affects another entirely different group of people. And a lot of times I'm caught between two decisions, and no matter what way I choose, somebody is going to be affected adversely. Somebody's going to be affected positively. And the burden of those choices, you'll notice as presidents go into power, they often look youthful and young. But after 4 years or 8 years as being president, they come out, they're all gray, they're haggard. It's a burden. And so to speak spiritually into those people is really, they just thank me over and over again, because they know they need the wisdom of God to make decisions for nations.
Wow, thank you so much. I think we're going to have you back again, and then do a special segment on how to marry somebody for 40 plus years. Because I think, particularly, I find that leaders or women leaders, there's sometimes, I think the biggest pressure comes from the home. And so it would be great to have you on a separate segment to just empower women in leadership to undergird them in the area of their marriage, and we can learn from you. I mean, I've only been married, I've been with Peter 22 years, and sometimes it feels like it's healthy, so I definitely would love to have you come and share that with us. But one of the things you shared that really has stuck with me is about be a hero, and really that I believe that I think in all of us inherently there is that piece of us that sees where there is social injustice. There is a piece of us that always recognizes that. And so around Be a Hero, the book title, Be a Hero, The Battle for Mercy and Social Justice, I think we would have to find, another spot and do a segment. I love Wesley, and then he can just unpack that.
Perfect.
We can become, as women, as leaders, like you said, being the largest demographic in any society, we can become agents that actually battle for mercy and social justice in our communities and in our nations. And then Shiloh Global, I want to, come to that where you talked about spiritual empowerment. But my excitement was really heightened when you talked about having leaders that you pour into and equip so that they are also leading. And I think that particularly in leadership and women, I find that sometimes we know that we carry this burden. I've called it leadership comes with burdens of responsibility. So we know that we have this load. And yet, because of past experiences, oh, somebody betrayed me. Oh, somebody did this, or this business didn't go. So we kind of like create these barriers and limitations where we are not always immediately willing to I would say, like, lock arms or collaborate or partner with other leaders that are built and equipped for those. So, and I see you do that so beautifully. I see you do that so flawlessly. I always say to you that you lead with such excellence. So can you share with us maybe 1 to 2 practical tips for anybody that is afraid of stepping into that space of saying, you know what, I am going to lock arms with other people, whether they're ready to lead or not. I see their potential and I'm going to pour into them and I'm going to walk with them. How, can you give us 1 to 2 practical tips that anybody listening or reading would then be able to apply that and break that limitation?
That's such a good question, Tina. I think I learned a lot from my natural mother. My mother is so I grew up in a family. My mom had 7 kids, my mom and dad. They've been married almost, 65 years plus, no, 70 years almost. They're my dad's almost 90 and my mom is 85. So you've been married a long, long time. Anyway, 65 years, I think. But and they had 7 kids. And so I was one of 7. And the oldest was, if you can believe this, the oldest was 6 when the 7th was born, because I have a twin sister. And so I grew up with all these kids, but my mother was an administrator of a hospital. So not only did she have a lot of kids, and so I'm speaking specifically of my mom. My dad was very supportive of my mom. But I remember when I was 16 years old, sitting on the back step, because we never had a lot of money growing up. That was a limitation. And I had these big dreams. I wanted to be an interpreter for international affairs, and I wanted to go to the UN and travel. And when I and my mom always encouraged me. So at 12 years old, I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be an interpreter for international affairs, and I'm going to do this. And I never had anybody say, oh, you could never do that. You can't travel. Even though I was from a small town in Saskatchewan in Canada, like tiny province, tiny town, I had nothing but belief around me. And when I was 16, it dawned on me how much money it was going to take to accomplish my vision. And I remember sitting on the back porch with my mother and saying, Mom, I've always told you I wanted to be an interpreter for international affairs. But today in guidance, this week in guidance, we had to look into what that would take. And I would have to go to interpreter school in Europe, and I would have to, and it would cost this much money and flights and blah, blah, blah. And I said, Mom, I don't think we have enough money for me to become an interpreter for international affairs. And my mother looked at me and she said, Stacey, don't ever let money stop your dreams. She said, you can be whatever you want. And she said, you might have to work a little longer. You might have to get an extra job. You might have to work a little harder, but you never let money stop your dreams. You can be whatever you want. And so that sense of empowerment that was given to me, I like to pass that on to other people. And so one of the first things I think of being a leader is to see what other people carry. And not see all the problems, but to find the gold that's hidden under the earth, in the dirt, as it were, and begin to call that out and to begin to nurture it. And also to create an environment where you're working with people because I am empowering. I have a mentorship that I have hundreds of people on the mentorship, and you're leading the government track there, Tina, doing an amazing job equipping people how to work with governments. It's amazing what you're doing. But I find that if you see what people carry, believe in them, and then walk with them as they go through the ups and downs, and there will be ups and there will be downs. Everybody will make a mistake. We don't jump on people on their first mistake. We say, hey, that happened. So how can we learn from that? How do we move forward? Because they're going to be a better leader after they've made a mistake than before they've made a mistake. And it's unrealistic to think that nobody's going to make a mistake. And as a leader, to cover other leaders as they're learning their process. And my goal is to make great leaders that feel supported, that excel beyond anything anywhere I could ever do or go. Because if we're going to bring transformation to the earth, then it's not going to happen through one person or one NGO or one organization. It is going to take all of us, on all hands on deck, working together with a collaboration and the greater authority that each individual has. Rudyard Kipling once said, "The strength of the wolf is the pack," meaning that the pack actually strengthens the individual wolf. But then he also said, the strength of the wolf is the pack, but the strength of the pack is the wolf. So the stronger your individual wolves, the stronger the pack is. And when you have a strong pack, it empowers every wolf. So that whole idea, nature seems to understand it, but humans, we're always fighting for a position or something stupid like that. So I think that that's a big guiding principle that I have.
That is amazing. I love that. Oh, the summary is going to be really good on this, my dear friends. And so, Stacey, I want to really be, mindful and honoring of your time. What would you say is one leadership lesson that we can learn from your life? Or two or three. We've got like 2.5 minutes. So, yeah.
Well, I think I have learned more from my failures than my successes. And so when we can take a failure and turn it into wisdom, we will go way further in the future. Failure has the capacity to take us completely off course, to crush us, to say we can't get up again. We're not going to do that again. That was so painful, so much loss that I don't want to do that again. Or, from my small Saskatchewan town, if you fall off the horse, you get back on again, the very same horse, and you learn to ride it. And when I have continued, when I've failed deeply, it has put so much wisdom in me for the future of how not to fail again, although we all will fail again, but also to turn the pain into empowerment. I think is the big thing. What can I learn from that pain, and how can I build better so that I don't face that pain again? So I think that embracing failure is probably the biggest leadership lesson that I've personally learned.
Wow, that is so good. That is so good. I love that. And please, you have to ask Wesley for me, what day of the week was he born? I know he's Nigerian, but Nigerians and Ghanaians were cousins, so he needs to know his Ghanaian name. But I need to know what day of the week he was born, and I will send his Ghanaian name. But just to wrap up here, Stacey is my mentor. She's been my midwife in my purpose, and just really poured into me to become, who I am today and the woman I am becoming every single day. And to wrap up what you've talked about here is that leadership always comes with a burden of responsibilities, but you should still never be afraid to make the choices that has to be made. And if you pay attention to those around you, including your mom, there is so much that you can learn. And don't ever let money stop your dreams. You may need to walk and work a little bit harder or a little bit longer, but you can always become what you want to be. And see others for what they carry, and call out those, pieces of gold that is within them, their potential. Be able to see beyond the problems that perhaps they might bring, or the roughness of them. See beyond that and see the potential in them. And as leaders, we must create the environment that empowers other people. Believe in other people. We always say believe in yourself, but we must also be the first to believe in other people, and be a woman or be a leader that is faithful. And by that we mean walk with other people in the ups and also in the downs, and cover one another as they learn. And then the other one is desire to make others great. If you are called to lead other leaders, desire to see them become great, for it is the only way forward to transform our world truly. And the strength of the wolf is in the pack, and the strength of the pack is in the wolf. Learn from your failures and turn that into wisdom. When you turn that into wisdom, you will go further far into the future. And to finally just wrap this up, the final word from Stacey is that you will fall off the horse someday, but never be afraid to get back onto the horse. I am just so full and enriched, with what you've shared with us. And if you're listening or if you're reading, we want to encourage you to just, come back to us. Just connect with us now at nationsofwomen.com. Tell us, how have you applied these practical tips, right? And what has been the results that you have seen? Are you leading? Are you called to lead other leaders? How are you empowering them? How are you transforming them? And also to connect with Stacey, I think it's beahero.com and shilohglobal.org.
Shiloh Global, actually our website is wesleystacycampbell.com, but I have shilohcompany.org it is, and beaherointernational.org. Be a Hero International. Okay.
Wonderful. All that information would be further down in wherever you're reading. It would be there. And don't forget to share those other people so their lives can be enriched as well. Take care until we come back your way again. And that's all for this week. You've been listening to Dr. Tina Allton with the Now Talks, the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. All that remains is for me to say have a fantastic week, stay safe, and reach out if you need any help now at nationsofwomen.com. Until next time, enjoy the pursuit of your potential, and remember, now is your time.